Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. This time, I want to take a look. Get that turned down. I got that too high. Take a look at this book here. Boffo Laughs #3 from Paragraphics, 1986. It's written by Batty with art by Charles Williams. And this, as it says here, it's not a comic, it's a funny book. Yeah, it is and it is funny. This is from 1986. This is, you can see this is kind of rough. I had got these back then in the 80s, at least a couple of them, and I don't think I've got them anymore. I just got this one a few months ago. But notice, except for that there, it's all the lettering and stuff is hand done. And I also want to point out a production mistake. Apparently, while doing the original art for the cover, whoever designed it, which is probably Charles Williams, looks like he made an error in measuring. You can see right along here where this line right here is supposed to be the edge of the paper, and it was a full bleed, and it it didn't go far enough and made a little boo-boo there. It's just a nice little thing to point out. I've seen a couple others, small independent comics way back when, who did similar mistakes like that. And this is Boffo Laughs, 52 big pages, Paragraphics. From what I can tell, these creators were Paragraphics, because if I look it up, all I can bring up are Boffo Laughs, and I don't even know how many issues. I saw listings for I think 4 or maybe 5 issues. And I said it's written by Batty. And Batty, of course, he wrote this, and he did some other stuff. This is all fan-oriented, comic book fans. And the main story here is 2 epic adventures. It has Ultra Guy Gets Married, plus the Great True Fan Death Bonanza. And Batty, he wrote this, and he is or rather was, until I guess they sold it last year, co-publisher of the Comic Shop News. And I didn't even know the Comic Shop News is still around. I guess it's been around since 1987, and I didn't know it was still around because I don't think I've seen one in over 20 years. And that was a free little newspaper that was free at the comic shops. But I don't think I've seen one since the 90s, I think. I used to get it all the time. And Batty was the organizer of the Atlanta Game Fest. He is a podcaster, if his podcast is still going, and it's called Batty for Music. So apparently he's a big music fan too, and has a podcast about music. And he plays and designs board games. I don't know what kind of board games, but, and that's just about all I can find about Batty. He's done writing for various other publications too, as well as a lot for the Comic Shop News. And Charles Williams. I can't find squat on him because largely because, unfortunately, there have been at least 3 other artists, historically prominent to some extent, artists by the name of Charles Williams, and that's all I can find on them. One of them goes back, it was an artist, did editorial cartoons, I think it was, back in the 1800s for, I think it was a British newspaper. So sorry, Chuck. That's how I can't. Chaz. He goes by Chaz. I can't find anything on you. I could find more on Ward Batty, but I couldn't find squat on Charles Williams. But I like the artwork, and the stories are funny. Have a lot of jokes and gags, in both of these stories, referring to comics and comic fandom. And it starts off here, has Ultra Guy and what's his buddy's name? Joe Power. That's his name. Ultra Guy and Joe Power. And the main hero on that was Ultra Guy, and he's getting married. So let's take a brief look inside. There you can see the cover illustration, and it's got a little cartoon by someone else on the back. All turtle romances. You can see that's funny. And splash page. And there's Ward himself talking about these characters are based on themselves. Ultra Guy is Chaz Williams, and Joe Power is Ward Batty, and it looks and these are their interpretations of themselves. They did something interesting here with this scene. Here, with using a high contrast photograph of a night scene of a city, and it's all kinds of little silly little things. Ultra Guy wanting to be kind of normal, have a normal life as well as his superhero-ness. He's going to ask his girlfriend to marry him. She doesn't know. I think she doesn't know that he is Ultra Guy, of course. When he's about to tell her, she says, "I just want a nice, sweet stay-at-home husband, and I know you'll be that for me." So then he can't tell her. Meanwhile, Joe Power is trying to find truth, and suddenly these things, he gets word he's being menaced. There's the menace of this trio, Dr. Hypno, the Lummox, and Lint Man, all based on on some villains from early Spider-Man days. And he's Joe Power is limited, can't do enough. Here he's trying to do all this other stuff, going all over trying to find trying to find Ultra Guy. And Harry is right at the wedding. He says, "I need your help. I need your help." And said, "You are," his bride, "You are a phony." Slaps him, and Joe takes him to where these guys are, and he gets all teed off, and he just goes to town. It's just a lot of fun. It's a good visual storytelling. I like a nice, good and consistent art style and proportions and everything on these figures. And the style of inking is, to my eye anyway, is reminiscent of the humorous version of John Severin's art. Of course, John Severin's so good at with the action and adventure from westerns and war stuff, as well as some other things. But he also was no slouch when it came to the humor illustrations. And this reminds me of that. And then Guy is not happy that Joe ruined his wedding, that he's now not going to have. Then the second story, True Fan Adventures. These are the actual characters. These are the characters still based on Chaz and Ward, and these are them in these stories. And something happens. Kablooey, kablooey, kablooey. Punisher's coming after him, and Ward is dead. Oh no, he's dead. Really? Yeah. And then, so Chaz is trying to find new partners. Here he is holding auditions for new partners, getting with comic strip characters, Hagar and stuff, Beetle Bailey stuff, and all this other stuff. And meanwhile, well, so he's got, I'll just go it alone, and I'll create because apparently they had some stuff, comic stuff in the Comic Buyer's Guide, from what I understand. So he comes up with something new, and he's Super Chaz. Here he is running down the street with all this murder, theft, and mayhem going on all around him. He's just completely ignoring them, and it's all that kind of stuff. So here he's trying to be a superhero, but he needs a villain. Here comes the villain, big pen of crime, based on the Kingpin and stuff. That's a really nice drawing. I bet you that's from a photograph of the actual house. Very nice, realistic drawing here by Chaz, and the whole. It's all funny. This is where you get into, I guess, the board game aspects of them, and then it gets to Batty Ward in comic book heaven, and trying to come back because he gets bored, trying to come up with a way for him to come back, and it's got down to like a game show. Coming down to between the Flash and Ward, and somehow he wins. He goes, "Thanks, Flash," and see, and this is True Fan Adventures, parodies of trading cards, and then all good fun. I think it, and well, I got it for what, $1 or so. If you can find them. If you come across them in a bargain bin, they're worth getting. Get a little chuckle out of. They're really dated because of the fandom oriented gags. If you're an older fan like me, I'll remember this stuff. So otherwise, you might not be aware. But that's all I wanted to share with you this time with Boffo Laughs number 3. And please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment below. Yes, have you heard of Boffo Laughs, or Ward Batty, or Chaz Williams, or even the Comic Shop News? Tell me about that, because I haven't seen it in ages. And apparently it's still around. So if you've got any of that info, let me know. And remember, comics are art.